So I haven't forgotten about the sketchbook, I just haven't had time to edit anything lately. Also, I feel like I've already edited this one, but I can't find the video anywhere, and I didn't think that I saw it posted, so I guess here I go again. Anyway, this is Jess. She is another character from Little Beirut, and her job within the narrative and within Will's kind of circle is to just have all of the plausible deniability in the world. If it's not for Jess, Will wouldn't be able to get away with half of the crap that he does. She's a fairly minor role in terms of screen time, but she is pretty important for keeping things running. And I mentioned a while ago that I wanted to get more comfortable with these brush pens and that I was going to kind of try to figure that out. And I kind of realized with this piece in particular what I think my problem was. And for some reason, these Copic ones, the small brush is a lot softer and harder to control than the big one. I don't really understand that, but okay. And also, this is one of those things that seemed like it should have been obvious, but it wasn't in anything that I looked up. It seems to work better for really big pieces. Trying to use it on something small, like a full body character on a sketchbook page, for some reason doesn't work. And go figure. So I have actually been using it a lot since this one too. What really bothered me though was that for the first top half it was looking really good. I loved how her ears were turning out and with her face, but it kind of fell apart with her hair, and I still don't really know why. I think it was just harder for me to keep the strokes long and consistent without pushing down too hard. But it's something I have been able to kind of work on a little bit as well. Also, this is one, you'll see it in a little bit. I had a lot of problems with the shading on this one. I believe I might have been live streaming this. I can't remember. I did a live stream and I did 2 or 3 pieces in it. I can't remember if this was one of them. So the video quality might not be super great. But this was one, it could have turned out a lot better. And I can't remember what marker set I was using for this one, but it just wound up not being ideal. At this point, I was still trying to use one set per piece rather than mixing and matching too much, and that really wound up limiting me in ways that just didn't work at all. But I have been getting a lot more comfortable, like I said, with this brush pen. I've kind of started to figure it out. I just wish I had done a little bit better with her hair. Also, her hair overall could have been done better, but I limited myself really weirdly, like I said, and just wasn't really paying the most attention at this point. This was done a couple weeks ago at this point, and you're only just now seeing it. So there's been a lot going on. I'm sure most of you are aware of all of the stuff that has been going on over here between the Kickstarter and the everything else. So pretty much what I get done lately has just been incredibly rushed, and this was no exception. But this character is a maned wolf. And one thing I really like doing with these characters, especially these really funky ones that aren't your common animals to do, is I try to get the markings down, not necessarily as accurately as possible, but more like the way a caricature artist would draw a person. I try to get the essence of the animal rather than making sure it is exactly perfectly accurate. So for her, I pulled up some pictures of some different maned wolves and kind of tried to find the essence of the animal rather than getting it perfect. So I didn't want her to look too much like a fox or like other breeds of red dog, so I wanted to make sure that her markings were very clearly unique and different. And with maned wolves, a lot of times the black around their face will fade into the red around the rest of them, but I didn't want that to happen. That's really difficult to draw, for one. It's really difficult to keep consistent. So I do tend to favor hard edges and more defined markings rather than gradients and fluffy outlines, I guess, is a good way of putting that. So she's got kind of this spectacled pattern around her eyes, and the black on her snout kind of overlaps the white a little bit, which you will see once I get that colored in there. And the result, I think, is a really unique looking character, because Jess is another one, like everyone else, who did not start off as an animal. So a lot of these characters I'm having to find different designs and looks for them. So a lot of these ones that you see in the sketchbook is the first time that I've been drawing them, sometimes maybe the second if they're a character that I've kind of had some ideas about. I've done a few live streams where I did some character development and building, which is a lot easier to do digitally, which is why you'll see those sketches done on my iPad first, because as you probably saw with Jira, after a certain point, it just gets way too difficult to keep on top of what I'm actually doing. So I won't be making any more goofs like that and trying to design these characters on paper first. And at this point, I was kind of, I think, trying to start to figure out that having really bright, lighter colors for the base looks a little bit better, and then I realized I wasn't going to really have time to put the pencils down, so she wound up being way too bright, which is fine. I think these are the Celamoon markers now that I'm looking at them, and I do really like this set, but it is a very limited set. A lot of them are really bright, vibrant, rich colors, so they're markers that I've been tending to use more for embellishments and small details rather than really big pieces of color. Like this one here. It just turned out kind of funky because I didn't want her to be bright orange. She was supposed to be a much deeper red, but this is what came out. And definitely I've been getting more into the habit of using 3 or 4 different sets of markers as I would come up with something a little bit better and more cohesive and not super duper bright. Like my pencils though, I do have a problem of not having a lot of really light desaturated browns. Anything that looks like it's going to be a desaturated lighter color of brown winds up being like pink or orange. So that's always a problem that I have too, because with these characters I don't like them to be overly bright and overly saturated. I like the darker, more natural tones. I like the dustier tones. So trying to figure out how to do that in marker with the style that I have has been weirdly difficult. And I think for this one, I didn't give her any undertones yet. Looks like I'm just using a dark gray to do her hair here. I didn't give her any undertones, which is something that I will normally do. For instance, characters who have black hair. Black is a very static color. It can't really go too many directions. So characters that have undertones, what I will do is, if they're supposed to have bluer undertones or more red undertones, is I will color the hair a really bright blue or a really bright red or something like that, and then go over it with the darker colors to put that black down on top. But I was, again, just using the Celamoon markers, and I don't think I really knew what color I wanted her hair to be at this point. I just knew that it was going to be black. I don't think I'd originally had her hair black in the original series. I don't think I ever really described it, though. She might have been blonde. I can't remember. I know Nicola has dark hair. I can't remember what color Jess's hair was, though. But she has black hair now. And that's also one of the reasons, though, I've been putting these characters down on paper, is to make sure that I have something that I can describe and that I have an image in my head. And apparently I was not using the Celamoon markers to shade. I was using Artix, which I do like these markers for shading, so I don't know what went so horribly wrong that everything wound up about 3 shades too dark, but you'll be able to see that real soon. And this is another really good example of something else. So if you follow me on Twitter, or you're at all involved in the art side of Twitter, you have probably seen these massive debates on whether or not you should be shading your ref sheets. And I feel like Jess here is a perfect example of why, if you are trying to buy commissions or do trade arts or anything like that, you should never shade your references. Because on something like this, especially where I completely messed up and just made her way too dark, I really don't know how that happened. I'm just not paying attention, I guess. It very quickly becomes almost impossible to tell what is shading and what is her markings. Like, what's she supposed to look like? How much of this is shadow? How much of this is just her? You straight up can't tell. And that is a really big problem with shading. It's something that I'm still kind of struggling with. I don't remember this always being a problem, but one thing I do know is that these markers do behave a little bit differently from the Prismacolors that I am used to. And this was kind of an issue I would sometimes have with Prismacolor, but it was never this bad, where if I knew that, you know, something was going to be shaded, I very rarely had issues where something was too dark or too light. I had got really good at knowing that, okay, this specific shade of orange works really well with this specific shade of cool gray or whatever. And I just haven't been able to figure that out yet because there's so many markers. There's over 200 colors across all of these various sets. And then there is something like 50 different shades of gray, haha. But yeah, I've just been having a really hard time with it, and I need to get more into the habit of swatching. I think I've not been swatching at all, so that makes it really hard to tell what's going on and what I've done wrong until it happens. But anyway, this is Jess. She's a fun one. You can learn more about her in Little Beirut, which I think I'll start linking to that down below as well, because this is just kind of turning into a channel where I mainly draw those characters. So if you want to check that out, it is available on Amazon through Kindle, so you can check that out. And the first 4 books are up right now. Hopefully I can get the 5th one out by the end of the year, but I don't know. Everything is just chaos right now, so I don't really have a whole lot of time to do much. But I will leave you here. Just have to shade her hair, which I don't even know what happened here. Very bad things. So I'll leave you here to watch what's left of this. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for liking, commenting, subscribing, all that fun stuff, and I will see you next time. Bye!